What's up, flooring family? Welcome to the huddle. With me, as always, Daniel and Jose Gonzalez from Preferred Flooring up in Michigan, Grand Rapids to be specific.
What's up, kids?
We're here every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Central, to discuss maintaining forward progress in your flooring career. We are starting today off a three-part series built around commercial construction contracts as it applies to the flooring contractor. So the title is, So You Want to Be a Flooring Contractor. I've had some people reach out to me on Facebook about helping them in this regard, like bidding practices and you know, how to read contracts, all this kind of thing.
We just had someone in here. What was that, yesterday? Yesterday, the guys we partner with Epoxy, and they're, you know, it's like, how do we even start something like this? Like, where do you even start?
So I would recommend that anybody with that question start with going through the huddle and watching the estimating practices and bidding practices huddles. Those were incredibly good. We had some special guests on that from Quantify. We've had some we had a lot of very detailed information in those podcasts. So I would recommend that, and then watch this three-part series, and you'll be well ahead. You'll get a lot of information that'll help you you know, become a material and labor provider should you choose to do so. And I'll caution on a few things. It's a difficult business because of cash flow. Typically, a lot of the contracts you're only allowed to bill once a month, and I'll get into some of that. But without further ado, gentlemen, you know, how'd the week go after, you know, since the last podcast? We hadn't talked in between, so
it's just because everybody's busy right now.
I'm actually had a meeting today with the church trying to finalize the contract and everything, and it's hard when you get the volunteer designers involved that everyone has an opinion and no one can make a decision.
Yeah, church boards, school boards, anybody.
That was the other one. I am also dealing with the school right now. The principal approved everything, got the superintendent to sign off, and then he quit.
That's nice. Well, I thought we'd start today off with some common contract pitfalls. So you bid the job, you've watched previous huddle episodes, and you learned how to properly estimate projects. You've learned how to send in a good bid. Now you have a contract. What's it all mean? So if you guys don't mind kind of maybe hitting on one thing that I didn't have on my list, which is how do your guys' well, let me clarify one thing. You have contracts that you generate and you give to somebody. So for example, I think Preferred was just referencing, you probably are giving a contract to the church, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
And then you have contracts that come to you from general contractors. So you have work that you may do direct with some businesses that you're going to generate a contract, and that'll be in a future episode. But this is in particular in regards to when you receive a contract from a GC to do the flooring portion of their construction project. In your guys' experience, what is the standard pay time that you guys have experienced, like just historically?
You're looking at 60 days ish.
That's
so
pretty standard.
Like you said, you can only bill once a month, right? So typically people are they're like, your bills have to be turned in by the 25th on an AIA, which we talked about last time. So
watch those episodes. I'm telling you, if you have questions, we have basically told you guys how to build a company in 55 probably 8 out of the 55 episodes is specifically about how to build a commercial flooring company or
Right.
a residential flooring company for that matter, if you choose.
So they want the bills by the 25th for that to go in the billing, and then hopefully get paid by the next 25th if everything goes well. But typically, I always do 2 months out.
Yeah. You can't bank. You
Yeah.
can't on it. It's
Well, we consider like a good payer 45 days.
that's
And
that good.
to kind of, you get 60s, you got 90s, we got 120s. I mean, this is not a business for the faint of heart. I want to be clear about that. So that's why I'm kind of starting it off this way, just so you understand. You have to have some either have cash, and I've talked about this in previous episodes. You either have to have a good amount of cash, or you need to have a good banking relationship that you can tap into a line of credit when you need to. Because if you have to bill like Daniel was just talking on the 25th, well, then they don't turn their bill in. They have 7 days to assemble their bill to the owner. And so then 7 days later, they turn in their bill. So now you're at like the 5th or so of the next month, depending on what month, how many days are in that month. But let's say it goes to the owner on the 5th. Then the owner has 30 days to pay them. So that puts it on the 5th of the next month if the owner pays on time. This is assuming everybody pays on time. So then the owner pays them on the 5th of the next month, and then they have 7 days. And I know that this statute is different by state, but in Kansas, they have legally, they have to pay you within 7 days of receiving payment from the owner. So another 7 days means it's the 12th, maybe the 15th. Well, you bill
The 25th.
That's 45 days if everything works great. So just keep that in mind as we get into some of this. But okay, so you got a contract. There are some common pitfalls, and contracts are very complicated. So I would very much encourage you to get an attorney to look at your contracts until you're very versed at doing them yourself. This is for educational purposes, but not financial advice or telling you exactly how to deal with your contracts. We're giving you some pitfalls and some known experiences, but this is not in replacement of you getting legal advice. So talk to your attorney. Find a good contract attorney, not just any family law attorney or something, or your uncle that practices traffic laws. Get a construction attorney that is very versed in construction contracts. Okay, so some of the common pitfalls that you'll run across is, and one of the early paragraphs in most contracts is default. So default is when you don't uphold your side of the bargain, and the contractor has, some tools at his disposal, or at their disposal rather, and it's usually listed in the contract what their tools are. But 90% of them, the tools are, they can put you on notice, and when they put you on notice, you have a certain period of time to resolve the situation that got you put on notice in the first place. Maybe your materials didn't show up, or your short labor, whatever the problem. You have a certain period of time. Now that period of time used to be like 7 to 10 days. It's now on most construction contracts that I've read 2 to 3 days. Uh-oh, we got the expert in the house.
Mhm.
So what are you guys seeing on default from a day's perspective as far as response?
It's kind of hard because we haven't really put ourselves in that position yet. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say how they would act and how specific contractors would react. We're usually pretty proactive.
In the contracts, it's typically 7 days still for us.
Okay.
And then depending on the relationship you have with that contractor, it's like, hey man, I'm not going to get there within the 7 days, but I'll be there on this day. And they're like, totally fine as long as you're in here. There, it's
Yeah, so build those relationships and watch those huddles about building relationships, because it'll get you out of some trouble.
Right.
If you ever get
And
close to being put on notice, and you
what-
can call them.
Yeah, what helps with that is when the first one comes up and there is an issue and you can do it within the first 1 or 2 days, then the next time they're like, oh, you're not going to be here until day 8. No problem.
Yeah.
Just get here.
We haven't
Yeah.
we haven't been hit with that strong pimp hand yet of utilizing some of the legalities they have at their favor based off their contract. So,
But a lot of the times we're punching out our own stuff as we go anyways. We just did our local chamber, and the only thing on the flooring punch list was a piece of base that the door guys messed up.
Congrats. Those are always nice jobs when you walk away with the low punch list.
congrats to the guys. The crew did it. The crew did all that.
So a lot of the times in this, 3 to 7 day period, they're expecting you to give them a plan on how to get back on track in writing. So one of the things is you can negotiate that. If it says 2 to 3 days, try to get that to 7 days, so you have a little bit more time. So it's a pitfall at 2 days. It's hard to turn things around in 2 days sometimes on a big construction project. And again, it still boils down to good relationships. We've gotten probably a handful of letters over the last 20 years where we were not performing the way the contractor wanted us to. And that could be, I won't get into it. Sometimes it's like lack of understanding on how much can be done in a given day, and they didn't have their durations right. Expecting 2,000 feet of ceramic tile to be installed in a day or something. To the fact that, sometimes we have not been able to perform to the perfect level. I own that when that happens, but we turn them around. The key here is, from a contract perspective, try to negotiate, 5 days or something. So that's a default. Quick other termination of the contract is a possibility. They can supplement you and charge you whatever the cost is for bringing in another flooring company to supplement you.
He's gonna jump on his phone. He's got to take off.
I just realized I had a time overlap, so I got to.
Fair enough. We'll catch you on the mobile. But so terminate, they can supplement you and then charge you whatever the other flooring company charges. Now, that is, most GCs do not want to do that. That's a lot of extra paperwork. If you'll remember one thing, make their life easy, like easier the better. The experience for your contractor. You keep it as simple as possible and as easy as possible. They don't like problems, so they don't want to be hunting down another flooring company to come supplement you. Your best bet is to, make the proper adjustments and do the best you can in getting their project back up to what they feel is a good state. The other thing they can do is just terminate your contract and hire somebody else, and then you're on the hook for whatever they pay. So if you got a $50,000 contract and you've got all the materials and you've done 10% of the labor, well, you've incurred probably 75% of the cost, and then they're going to hire somebody in to come and do the labor. Your competitor's not going to do you any favors, and
they're going to charge whatever they want.
Yep, they'll charge whatever they want. Now, quick pro quo, make sure that your GC knows that you expect to have daily reports on the hours, the time, the cost of that supplementation or that termination, and then what they're going to be charging you. But best bet, don't get in that position. So, and then they have termination for convenience in a lot of contracts, and that's just maybe the owner just changes his mind midway and shuts the project down. Legally, they got to pay you costs to that date, but they don't owe you any of the profit under those circumstances. So if you have $50,000 in cost, they're legally on the hook for that $50,000. but not your profit. You're going to lose that more than likely. Most courts have upheld that as well. So we haven't gotten in that position, but this is just knowledge over 20 years. We've been supplemented one time in 20, 21, 22 years, whatever it's been. So those are the termination. Those are the scary things. A lot of this is kind of maybe a little bit scary, but it's just the facts. So that's what the purpose of this podcast is. It's kind of give you some information and education.
Like you said, you've been through it one time in 20-something years, but that information, just knowing that it could happen, like, hey, I remember they said something about this. Let me give Paul a call and see what I should do real quick.
Yep. And playing off of the payment that we just talked about when Daniel was talking about paying on the 25th, and we went through the time frame there. Another key metric, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts as well, but one thing you want to remember is if you cannot bill till the 25th and you're net 30 with all your vendors, try not to have your materials come in on the 1st, because you're going to hold that receivable now. It's going to be almost due before you can even bill for it. So try to have your materials land at your warehouse or be billed close to the time that you're going to be able to bill. That way you're not out that cash for as long a time. Just a little nugget.
Or you can get insurance and send pictures and bill for all the material while it's sitting in your warehouse too.
Well, you can do that, but if you're not able to bill till the 25th still,
that's true,
and your materials come in on the 5th, you're holding that receivable for 20 days. So you only have 10 days left to pay when you just bill it. So it's a cash flow thing. Try to get your materials come in. Most contracts will allow you to bill for stored materials as long as you have the proper insurance. And like Daniel just said, you can provide pictures. Okay, another thing on my list was liquidated damages. I don't know if I mentioned that, but those are just verify that your contractor is going to incur liquidated damages. Liquidated damages, by definition, is a dollar figure, predetermined dollar figure, meant to give back to the owner for lost profit, for not being able to be in business. So if you're doing a law firm and they're not able to move in on the date that they're supposed to, and they figure they're going to lose, $5,000 a day in profit, they will predetermine what the per day liquidated damage is. These are not meant to be penalties for non-performance. Most contracts will, like if you read the AIA contract, the standard contract that all other contracts basically derive from, they're not meant to punish you. So make sure your GC is incurring those damages if they're in your contract, because otherwise the GC can charge you for them, but he's not paying them, so it's more of a penalty. So just quick pro quo there.
right? And typically with flooring, we're the last ones in there, so we're on the hook for that almost every time if you're not trying to stay ahead of it.
That is one hell of a good point, sir. The fact is because we're supposed to be last, we're not always, but we're pretty near the end of the project, and the time crunch on flooring contractors and painting the finished people is way more stressful than being a concrete contractor at the beginning of the project, or a earthwork company, or a steel erector or something of that nature. It's so early on the project, the pressure is not as crazy as us finished guys. So
that's there's good and bad about both sides of that, right? Because those steel erectors,
AC.
well,
most times
everyone that starts in the beginning, their warranty doesn't start until everything is completed. At least we're on the end of that, so that way our warranty starts almost as soon as we finish the job.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So your 1-year warranty that Daniel just spoke about, most contracts, I think pretty nearly every contract's going to say 1-year workmanship warranty. That starts on substantial completion. The contractor and the owner agree on the substantial completion date. So it's usually, like Daniel said, one of the benefits of being near the end is your 1-year warranty starts pretty close to when you finish the job, compared to, say, somebody who was early on in the project. Their 1-year warranty still is not going to start until substantial completion, which could be 4, 5, 6 months after they're done and off the job. So that's
we have one at a hospital right now where they're still not done, and we've done, multiple different phases. And it's been I think it's been almost a year since we've actually even been in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got some hospital work like that too, where we did the last phase is not even near a year old, but the first phase is 2.5 years old, and we still have to go back and fix stuff on warranty there if it comes up. Now, luckily, we did a really good job. I haven't had to do that more than maybe a couple of times, and it's a large project, so it's been pretty good.
I wonder if there's a way to put in literature to protect against that if it is phased out.
You can ask. We did ask on a contract that per major phase, if you have major phases, I think you can maybe get it through. I asked, and it goes from phase 1, 2, 3, just like it just flows across the building. And they rejected that request. So
don't know if you don't ask.
But yeah, ask. A lot of this stuff is just exactly that. Try to get the best deal for your company. A contract, before you sign it, is just a negotiation. So negotiate it. And obviously working with good companies that you've got a good relationship with is paramount. But a lot of times when you start out, you guys may not have those strong relationships yet, and you have to live by the letter of the law, which is your contract. We talked about the payment dates and everything, and that goes to pay when paid. Most contracts are pay when paid, meaning the contractor is not actually on the hook to pay you. It's the owner that's on the hook, and the contractor is there to pass through the money as they receive it, and they get a fee on that money. So most contracts are pay when paid. Some areas of the country are paid if paid. I would encourage you to fight that. That totally takes all risk off of the GC to pay you. And so I would get with your attorney on that, but I've heard that, and we're going to start fighting the pay when paid thing, and start to put some more terms in, or try to get some money down.
When we were labor only, we got caught in one of those where one of the biggest construction companies over here went bankrupt, and it was one of their last projects on a building downtown, and there was extensive prep work, and everyone's like, yeah, here, we're signing this, we're signing that, additional stuff. And then once it came down to it, even the people that we were doing work for, the flooring store, was like, oh yeah, we didn't get paid for this, so we're not going to pay you. And it's like, that's not my contract, that's your contract.
That was a rough one.
We take care of our labor still. We're the ones that are on the hook, and really that's how you got to be as a good flooring contractor, in my opinion. Most of your subs are not in the position to be in this pay if paid, pay when paid kind of world. You sign the contract, you agreed to the terms. Unless you're letting all your subs read the contract and sign a contract that is identical to yours, you can't, I think it'd be kind of shitty, for lack of a better word, to then try to hold them to a contract that you agreed to, but they may not have.
Right.
That is correct. I mean, man, like, how many, from a labor only perspective, I wonder how many people actually understand that there is a master contract in which someone has to abide by, and how many of the original master contracts do the contractors let us really see this before they edit and make it their own.
Well, the AI contract is the kind of the one that most other contracts came from. So getting that, and that's public knowledge. I mean, you can get an AIA contract from Google.
Right.
A lot of your GCs will still use the AIA contracts, and there's some stuff in there that's not great for the subs, for the subcontractor, like the flooring company. But read through that. That'll kind of give you a baseline understanding of how most contracts read. Okay, so that's pay when paid, pay if paid stuff. Accepting, okay, so the retainage. Do you guys ever negotiate your retainage amount?
So a lot of the time,
No.
well, a lot of the guys that he deals with, we actually don't pay any retainage. So
No,
that's great. The guys that I deal with are the same people that I see in like chamber meetings and stuff like that. So I'm constantly in those meetings. They're like, what can we do to get the smaller guys, you know, a better chance? It's one, break out the bids more, right? And then number two is work on retainage. And then it was crazy because the first couple jobs that we did for some of the bigger guys, they had retainage in there at 10%. And before I even asked, they were like, you guys are locked in at 5.
That's awesome.
That's because Daniel went in there with donuts, helped him out, brought him breakfast and lunch.
So bribe them with food.
It's not bribing. Not bribing.
No,
It's
I'm just
feeding.
kidding. Yeah. The point is that most contracts come across at 10%, and you can negotiate it down. We've been successful in getting a lot of those negotiated down to 5%. So a lot of it has to do with your past work performance. So you may have to crow for a little bit and accept 10%, but it still never hurts to ask it to be lowered to 5. But once you get a good reputation with the GC, most of the time they'll lower it to 5 if you ask them. And some of them have just done it.
Yeah, and one of the contracts that and one of the projects we just finished, they actually had it so it's 10% up until you hit 50% of the project, and then you can ask to be lowered to 5.
Yeah, and I've also
so progressive.
Yeah, I've also seen it where when you're 50%, they pay you 50% of your retainage. I don't know if that math works out the same, but point is retainage is somewhat negotiable if you just ask.
And that's something that you have to realize too, like as a commercial contractor, it's, yeah, you're sending out all these bills, but sometimes this retainage takes a while. Like you're waiting for a huge chunk of money for longer than you would like.
And in some cases that could be some of your profit margin too, right? Or the majority of it, because you had to go so tight just to be relevant on that bid or that bid market. And it does take a while, and I'm pretty sure that at some point Daniel and I looked at each other like, man, do we really want to do this? Is this something we have to build something up? We have to be comfortable. We have to find a way to be comfortable. And just meet people like Paul who help you out and give you advice, or they're like, we didn't have the huddle. Obviously when we were starting, so there was no information and nobody talking about it. And it was one of those things where you ask, but nobody wanted to share information because just everybody wanted to keep it to themselves. So it's just, I do like that Daniel, I do hear him on the phone talking about negotiating some of the contract. Well, hey, this says this says this. Well, I could do this. Well, what about this? Like, if we can trade this off, that would help us out too. And it's never any argument. I don't ever hear any argument from that guy, from the other side of the line anyway. Otherwise, Daniel would, I don't want to talk to you anymore. But
be willing to negotiate. And a quick comment on retainage, our 45 and 60-day comments does not apply to retainage. That I've had that run a year, and it gets ridiculous. So just be prepared that your retainage can be held for a long time, and sometimes not even because of you. We've had jobs where our retainage was held under no fault of our own for a longer period of time because Maybe the electrician put the wrong wall sconces in, and the replacements aren't coming for 3 months, and the owner's holding all the retainage until those are done. So it doesn't always reflect on you, but you're still being held as part of the contract team, the overall construction team. So that's retainage. The last thing I have, which I think is important, is sometimes you'll get a contract that doesn't have any scope to it. It doesn't say what the contract amount is for. If you're bidding what we call hard bid jobs, I'm not sure what you guys call it, but the jobs that are on the street that you're going to compete with, it's open bid. It's the open bid market where any flooring company can throw a number at it. We still bid a fair amount of that work. We like to bid negotiated more, obviously, but those open bid jobs, we still do bid. And a lot of those contracts will come across and say, you know, scope of work per 09680 carpeting specification, and it'll list out the specs and the drawings, and that's it. I still would ask for a scope. And if you're doing a job with a more of a negotiated job, then you definitely want a scope, you know, furnish and install carpet, tile, transitions, you know, and accessories, and like, because what they try to do is, and this is what the key is, you need to have a scope, because your spec may say something about protection of floors, for example, but we exclude protection of floors on our bids because we can't be the sheriffs of the project. And I explained that to the GC. I'm like, if anybody has the power to keep people off of our floor or be careful on the floor, it's you. Because if you put me in charge of protection, then I have to replace any damage that happens from my trades. Well, then I don't want any, I'll put protection down, but you're not going to have ladders, you're not going to have lifts, you're not going to have this, that, the other, like, and they don't want me being the sheriff of their job. So we just exclude protection. If they just list your spec and the drawings or the bid documents on without a full scope, well, you're agreeing to that if you sign and you don't have your exclusions listed. So I always ask for a scope exhibit that says what they want me to provide and recognize my exclusions. Leveling, you know, skim coating, unless otherwise listed on the bid, we exclude skim coating, additional floor prep, leveling, filling, all that kind of stuff. You don't know what you may or may not have to do until you get to the job and review the slab. And it could be a brand new piece of concrete. I got into a long discussion with a good friend of mine, well, a friend of mine that's also the president of a pretty good sized construction firm. And he got a $7,000 change order from us. Now we hadn't done the work. There's another nugget for you. Don't do the work. You get a change order, guys. But we submitted a change order request, or PCO as we call them, potential change order. He calls me, he says, there's no way it's that bad. This is brand new concrete. This is that, this is the other. And I'm like, have you been to the site? No. Will you go look at it and then call me?
Right.
Right. He calls me back. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe that got by. You know, that they let their concrete contractor get away with what they got away with. And, you know, we obviously ended up getting that change order, performing the work and taking care of the client and giving them a great floor. But if I just sign a document that has all floor prep needed to perform the material that's in the spec, you know, specs read very vaguely that way. Well, I'm agreeing to all this floor prep that may be there. So, and there's protections within the spec that's in your favor, but I'm just saying the key here is to understand that if you have a full scope that you can mark out, say protection of floors, you know, we've had it like stripping and waxing at the end. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
someone else's final cleaning. We exclude final cleaning as well, those kinds of things.
Yeah, we do the same thing. And when I do come across someone that's like, nope, we still want you to include floor protection. And it's like, all right, well, I'm going to break it out then, because I'm not going to include it in my main bid. I know no one else is going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If we're asked to provide floor protection, we break it out, and we're just not cheap with it, because we're going to use good quality protection materials, because really when you are in charge of protecting the floor, you're also accepting the risk of having to replace because somebody damages it. So
somebody spilled their water on the red rosin paper that someone else covered it with, and it stains your flooring. And
yeah,
we learned that one through someone else, not through us. But
yeah, like ram board's great for scratches and stuff, but it's not going to displace weight. So if they're going to drive a 5,000-pound lift on your tile floor 7 days after it's installed without putting 1/2-inch plywood down, you know what I mean? So we just try to stay away from protecting the floors and only do it when we absolutely are required to do it. But that's some of the broad overview, broad strokes of like some pitfalls that these construction contracts that will be given to you may have in them. Thought you guys have any others that come to mind that you've seen over the course of time here for you?
I think we've actually been pretty lucky so far, to where some of the companies either just use what we send them and sign it and send it back, or I've seen like even some of the bigger companies over here, they'll actually do their contract, and then right at the very end they'll have all of our stuff in there too, so that way there's no question this is included in there.
Yeah, I like it when they add my bid as an exhibit.
Right.
Yes.
I love it when they do that. It doesn't happen with the really big companies around here anyway. They don't do that, but some of your mid-sized GCs, that 50 to $80 million contractor, they'll just add your bid as an exhibit. I love that, because it's like, this is now part of the contract.
Right. There's no question. It's in there. Like, it's written in stone.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. When that does happen, it brings up a question. I haven't asked for that to happen to be honest. It just either happens or it doesn't. I hadn't asked for that to be added as an exhibit. Just I'll report back and let you know how that goes. I'm going to actually start asking for our bid to be added as an exhibit to the contract.
You know what? That's actually a good idea to ask. I don't think we've ever really actually asked. It's just been there. We're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Now there is no, they cannot argue that there was a hidden agenda or that information was left out, because especially when we're pretty specific, looking at it from an installer perspective, pretty specific as to what we included and don't include.
And going back to the scope too, right? Because on one of the projects that we were on, and I think I brought it up before, it's in the scope, it said spec new carpet throughout. What does that mean? That means I'm specing a new carpet. And then they came back with, I don't understand, how would you would interpret it like that? I said, read it out loud.
He's conversating with the architect, you guys. Like, this guy's like, you guys won the proposal or won the bid. This is it. And then he just said, when Daniel said that, I was in the office and I was like, covered my face.
What was their intent?
Because he said, why would you spec a new carpet? I said, because it says right in there to spec new carpet. Because at first they were just going to do an expansion and just do new flooring in the expansion. And then one of the alternates was spec new carpet for replacement throughout the entire building. So I was like, I can save a bunch of money if I just spec this new carpet. And almost did. They went with the other manufacturer anyways, and ended up being like $20,000 more. So I tried, but he did. I think after I told him, read it out loud and tell me how you don't understand why I did that. And then after I said that, he was like, "I'll call you back."
Gentlemen,
I'm
of course,
still-
I gotta take off. We have baseball tryouts again. So last
Join
one.
us.
Yeah, sorry about that. I do got to tend to my son though. He was my warehouse guy today. Did some
Welcome to them.
inventory for me, so I appreciate that. But now I gotta get him ready to rock.
Awesome. Good luck, brother.
Thank you guys.
We got someone better, anyways.
There we go.
Way better.
So I'm still curious, what was the architect's intent in that sentence?
They never said anything. They just came back with, okay, just give us a price for the other carpet.
All right, that's crazy. Yeah, so when you are bidding, again, go back to the bidding and estimating.
That's the big thing, is read and understand what is going on, right? Because if you're not reading that spec, if I wouldn't have read that and I would have just, if I would have just did that same carpet, I probably would have lost the bid right off the bat anyways, because I know a lot of other people read it the same exact way I did.
Yeah. Yeah, reading your specs and reading through your construction documents. We did a whole thing on estimating and bidding practices, 2 separate episodes. So I won't get into it now. Go back and read those or watch those episodes. But once you get a contract, the whole purpose is then whatever you sent them into a bid. So if they sent you a bid or you sent them a bid for, carpeting at $100,000, if you're reading if your proposal states a certain carpet, for example, and then later in the contract they have a different carpet than what was on your bid form, it's funny how they get the dollar figure right.
Right.
Some of the other particulars on how you came to that dollar figure on your bid wasn't included in the contract.
And not only that, look at all the figures too, because I've had some contracts come back where it's like, these numbers do not add up. So
yeah. I've had plenty of contracts come across that did not have the right dollar figure on them. And oh, we forgot this. One of the most common is they'll say an alternate's accepted, but they didn't have the alternate dollar figure on there. We've had that happen. It's a simple phone call, but you must read your contracts and understand what you're signing on the dotted line for, and there's legal ramifications. So again, get a construction attorney to review your contracts. I would encourage you to review them with them so that you can learn, because once you have the knowledge, you can read the contracts on your own.
right. And
give yourself a few $100.
And don't be shy to give people a call and ask questions and stuff like that, because I know like millennials and younger, we're like, text me, right, or email. Why are you calling me? But a lot of it can be done a lot faster when it's over the phone, follow-up email, just saying what you just talked about, because you can email back and forth for days and no one understands what the hell is going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So pick up that phone and make a better contract for yourself. I mean, you can work through a lot of those issues that may come up. But the bottom line is this: you bid the job under a certain understanding, you portray that on your bid form as best as you can possibly do, and then you need to make sure your contract matches that, all the assumptions and all the work that you put into putting that bid out. You don't want to be signing a contract that has stuff in it that you did not figure. And you also, some of these pitfalls we talked about in this is like, if you can negotiate better terms, you should try. That's the overlying thing. And I think what you can see here from what Daniel and Jose have both said, as well as myself in this podcast, is that you can, a lot of times it works. Sometimes it doesn't, but you will never know if you don't ask. And then there's some things that you just can't agree to. I mean, how are you going to protect 100,000 foot of flooring for free, right? And make any money? You're going to be out of business in no time. So, you know, if you didn't figure floor protection, redline that on the contract, send it back to them, initialed next to your red line, and they a lot of times will agree to your markups or your changes. So don't be scared to. Another time saving mechanism is, say you get a DocuSign contract, print that sucker off, make your markups, email it to the PM that sent it to you, and say, here's my markups. Can you please consider these as and rewrite the contract? And most of the time it happens, as long as it's not something ridiculous or a big contention piece. So that's my 47-minute 47-minute contract pitfall explanation and deep dive.
Yeah, and a lot of it, it's easy to hear us talking about it, but until you're like in the thick of it, you won't know until you have that contract in front of you and you're reading over, 15 pages and making sure that everything is aligning with what you submitted.
Yeah. And so if you're watching this on YouTube or one of the social networks, like it, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I say that to also say, if you get into a contract situation, or you get a contract you don't know, refer back to this podcast, watch it, see if we addressed it. Otherwise, reach out to us. We can give you some surface level advice, but again, I don't want to replace an attorney or act like I'm an attorney. I know neither does Daniel or Jose, so we're not giving you legal advice. We're just giving you our experience and clearly telling you to get a construction attorney to look at your contracts until you feel comfortable reading them on your own.
Right. Eduardo did say that he had a question about Go Carrera, but I think he might have jumped off already.
Oh, gotcha. Happy to answer.
Let me see if he texted me, because I texted him. No, he might have got busy.
Well, tell him to email me and I will give him a call. All right. Well, any closing thoughts there, Mr. Daniel?
It is scary when you start getting into all this stuff, but like I said, you're not going to know until you start doing it. So a lot of being an entrepreneur is pretty much taking the dive and hope you land good, right?
Take the risks.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of this is solved by good performance. So making sure you are, taking care to have the best installers on your team. I will plug Go Carrera, get into Go Carrera, and, preferred is the Go Carrera company. I will say we're getting ready to start building, as Go Carrera, building the network out around them. Once the company is live on Go Carrera, we come to your area and build the installer network around you and give you the metrics through the hammer rating and past performance and things like that, so you know who you're dealing with.
Right. And the guys that we have signed up, one of them is really technology illiterate, so Ben had to hold his hand through this situation and sign up and everything. But once he got that through his first project, he was like, this is actually kind of nice, man.
Yeah.
And then the next time I just threw a job on there and he accepted it right away. It's like, yeah, this is what can happen when you build something like this. It's not me calling, hey, what's going on? It's me throwing it up there, you telling me when you can do it, and then I'll schedule it.
Yeah. I will, I'm going to read you, I got a testimonial just the other day sent to me, and this is a flooring installer out of Kansas City. It says, finally, someone who brought the flooring installation industry out of the Stone Age. Like, exclamation points. Thank you, Go Carrera. Go Carrera is frankly the easiest and best way I've ever used to find flooring jobs. No matter where in the country I might be, there's a chance that I can pop open the app and find a project. Now, he works mainly in the Midwest, and we're really strong here, so he has a really good experience in doing that. I can find jobs, bid jobs, negotiate the money or the schedule. The change orders are easy. It's organized communication between the installer, the installer provider, and the customer and the flooring company all on one app. And did I mention getting paid is fast? This is the only flooring app I will use. Again, thank all of you at Go Career for dragging this side of my industry out of the Pony Express era. So, sometimes it's hard to get going because, look, we're asking for a lot of data. We're trying to really verify that the installer is who he says he is. And that can take time, and it can be a little bit difficult. We need to have documentation on file for the companies who are going to hire you to, know you're a company, know you're covered on insurance, those kinds of things. But once you get to using it, it is very intuitive and easy. And we're adding companies, we're adding installers at a very good rate. It depends on the metropolitan area we're targeting, but even in small metros, we're getting 5 to 8 new installers on a daily basis, and those turn into full profile. Probably 2 out of those, I'd say probably 5 or 8 in a whole week. So maybe 10% of those turn into 15% of those turn into full profiles on the application. So anyway, that's a quick Go Career plug, but the point there is know who you're dealing with. Try to do good quality work, communicate well with your installer subs and your employee installers, and then communicate with your GC well. Though all those things will help a lot. And all these things are really, all these contract things we talked about are really just, if something goes wrong, then this is their recourse. Your job is to try to keep it from going wrong. So address the things that will put you in a bad position, negotiate it, but also your performance is your number one defense. So, and doing work with good companies. Check out the GC firm too. Make sure that you call other subs. Well, it doesn't matter. You can call electrical subs and drywallers and painters and ask them if they've worked for that GC firm before, and make sure that they're a good company.
Right.
So doing work with good companies and then performing well take away most of your headaches.
Right. And one more plug before we take off from here is you guys are still giving away the Yeti tumbler, right?
Yes, we still have Yeti tumblers to give away on anybody who reaches $1,000 on direct invoicing. So you can invoice anybody through that part of the application. Just go to invoicing and toggle over to direct invoices, and you can bill Aunt Jane for redoing the carpet in her basement. From that to if you're doing a little side construction project and doing a little remodel or whatever, you can get paid right through the app, and you can accept credit cards. And it's helped a lot of crews that had to turn down work because the customer wanted to pay by credit card and they wanted to get paid check or cash because they didn't have a way to accept credit cards. All you got to do is be a Go Career member and you can accept credit cards.
Right. And that's the other thing too, is I hear a lot of people complaining. It's like, I don't want to accept credit card because they charge me, this much percentage. Well, you just build that into your price, man. That's all you got. Like, why do you think we accept credit cards? Because if I'm pricing everything like I am accepting a credit card, then when someone does pay with a credit card, it's already covered. And if they do pay by check, it's just that extra percentage that goes in my pocket in case anything happens later.
Yeah, you should figure figure it just like you said, that you're gonna accept a credit card, figure the 4% fee and just have it as part of your bill. Most of the time it's not going to kick you out of winning the project, especially if you're good at what you do. But it just gives you another way and separate you from other installers that simply cannot accept credit cards. I mean, getting a merchant account outside Go Career is not the easiest thing in the world. It is easy to get if you're a Go Career member, though, a Go Career, network installer. So all right, last plug is FCICA and
CFI convention.
CFI conventions coming up very quickly. It's in the end of September. What is it, 27th through the 31st or something like that. I hope you guys can join us there. It's going to be a blast. And I don't know if we're going to be there during a Tuesday, but if we are, we'll be shooting the podcast live on location again. We've done that a few times, but make sure to get to that one. If you can get to any conference, I've been to the FCICAs, I don't know, for 5 years, and same with CFI, and they've always been separated. And I think they'll continue to have some of their own conventions, but this one is a joint convention between the two entities. And I can't imagine it not being fantastic. So get to Orlando. It's an awesome hotel, right? The Rosin Shingle.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's beautiful.
Beautiful hotel.
And they have some really good drinks at the pool bar when the convention closes down.
There you go. Good drinks. And then I will give you a cautionary note. I seen an alligator once when I was going for a run. So.
That's why I don't run, see?
Safety, man. All right, my brother. Well, thanks for joining. That's going to end our episode of the Huddle. And next week we'll be talking more contract, particulars. So join us next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And until then, we're out.
All right. See you guys later.